Oscar stages aren't the only place to see massive, earth-shaking dust-ups. While words and gentle diplomacy have long been Star Trek's preferred strategy, as it should be for the successful resolution of any conflict, sometimes punches, kicks, and a good bat left to the face are the only ways to settle a score. With that in mind, I'm the Trek Lad, and these are the greatest fight scenes in Star Trek history. Let's warp into this. Kirk vs. Spock in Amok time. Kirk and Spock is generally considered the galaxy's greatest ever bromance, but there have been occasions where the two have come to blows, with the events in Amok time among the most intense. With Spock suddenly entering the Ponfar season, the Enterprise travels to Vulcan so he can bond with his betrothed T'Pring. T'Pring, however, isn't really up for the arrangement. Through Vulcan shenanigans, as well as the deadly ramifications of not completing the mating ritual, Spock is forced to face off against Kirk, T'Pring's chosen champion, in a fight to the death for the right to bond with her. The fight is fierce and physical, with a furious Spock dominating Kirk thanks to physical superiority and acclamation to Vulcan's harsh atmosphere. Kirk battles valiantly, but is no match for his science officer, who strangles the captain seemingly to death to end the fight and his crazed blood fever. Kirk, of course, isn't dead, having been injected with a neural paralyzer to simulate the effects of death by Dr. McCoy, much to Spock's and our relief. Kirk vs. Kruge from The Search for Spock. Kirk certainly has a thing for fights in hellish locations, further evidenced by this, the culmination of his red-hot feud with the renegade Klingon Commander Kruge. Kruge had it coming. Determined to learn the secrets of the Federation's doomed Genesis planet, the commander destroyed the science vessel the USS Grissom, and followed that up by ordering the brutal murder of Kirk's son David. Kirk would strike back, however, luring most of Kruge's crew aboard the Enterprise before wiping them out with the ship's auto-destruct. With nothing left to sacrifice, Kirk and Kruge met in a violent brawl on the unstable planet's rapidly disintegrating surface. Once again, finding himself at a physical disadvantage, Kirk used the white-hot rage of losing his son and ship to turn the tide, knocking his foe over a cliff edge. Incredibly, Kirk then reverted back to diplomacy, offering to save Kruge, but the Klingon wasn't interested and attempted to drag the Admiral down with him. Kirk by that point had had enough, and after a few sharp kicks to the head, Kruge met his fiery end. Worf vs. Duras from Reunion. Now, most know not to antagonise Worf. Either Duras didn't know, or didn't care, and thus ended up paying the ultimate price for his treachery. Investigating the death of the Chancellor of the Klingon High Command, and also overseeing the arbitration of succession for the new one, the Enterprise played host to Gowron and Duras, the two contenders for leadership of the Empire. Also involved in the process is Klingon Ambassador Kayla, Worf's mate, who surprises him with his son Alexander. Investigating the circumstances surrounding Worf's mysterious dishonour and excommunication, Kayla draws the attention of Duras, who kills her to prevent the truth from being discovered. Discovering a dying Kayla with Alexander, Worf is understandably pissed and meets Duras, who didn't know the two were bonded, to claim vengeance. The two battled viciously with blades. Hoping to distract his foe, Duras reminds Worf that the truth will never be known if he's killed. But for Worf, revenge is the only acceptable outcome, disarming and knocking Duras to the ground before plunging his batleth deep into his enemy's chest. Revenge indeed is a dish best served cold for our favourite Klingon security chief. DS9 versus all of the Klingons in The Way of the Warrior. If you think one Klingon warrior is intimidating enough, imagine what Sisko and the crew of Deep Space Nine were thinking when they went to war with Gowron and a fleet of Klingon warships. Dissolving the Khitomer Accords and the Federation-Klingon alliance, Gowron and the Empire invaded Cardassian territory, convinced the Dominion had taken over that region. Opposing the Chancellor's aggression, Sisko and crew, aided by a recently arrived Worf, protect the Cardassian government, the Detapa Council, from destruction, transporting them to DS9 and proving that they had not been infiltrated by the Changelings. However, Gowron and Martok remained determined to conquer and attacked Deep Space Nine. The station, now equipped with upgraded defences and weaponry, fares pretty well, destroying a number of Klingon ships. But despite this, the Klingons still managed to overwhelm the shield generators and beamed onto the station, beginning a wild battle with Sisko and his crew in ops. The fighting is fierce across the station, with firefighting and hand-to-hand combat rampant in all areas. Kira and O'Brien are severely injured, as are many others, but the Starfleet and Bajoran forces prevail, restoring the shields just as Starfleet's reinforcements arrive. A brief but bloody fight, the first of many more to come in the sector. Seven versus the Rock in Tsunkatse, also known as the time the Rock laid the smackdown on 7 of 9. That's a wrestling reference if you didn't know. Kidnapped by Penk, a Nordican fight promoter, Seven was forced to compete in Tsunkatse, a popular sport where combatants battle in boxing-like competition where gloves are very painful looking polaron disruptors. Initially resistant to competition, Seven is eventually trained by a Hirogen veteran of the sport, but not before facing off against then WWF superstar The Rock, making an early acting appearance as a fierce Pendari warrior. After engaging in some trash talk, the Pendari and Seven begin to trade blows, with the Pendari quickly gaining the upper hand, clearly the result of his experience and also willingness to compete. Seven soon comes back, however, landing several well-placed kicks to the Pendari's midsection sensor. The momentum shift would be short-lived, however. Taking advantage of Seven's hesitation to harm, the Pendari recovers, lands several shots before hoisting Seven into what we know better as a rock bottom to settle the match. Not a bad losing effort for Seven by any means, but the odds were always going to be stacked against her, taking on the People's Pendari. Picard versus Shinzon in Nemesis. Arguably Starfleet's greatest diplomat, Picard did have to get his hands dirty from time to time, but he probably didn't expect one of those times to involve impaling his own clone. Engaging his angry young doppelganger and his immensely powerful ship capable of irradiating an entire planet, the Enterprise and the Scimitar fought to a standstill in the Basin Rift. With both ships crippled and out of options, a dying Shinzon activated his ship's failure-on radiation weapon, aiming to wipe out Picard and the Enterprise in a move that would have had Khan nodding in approval. Transporting to the Scimitar, Picard headed to the bridge, shooting his way through Shinzon's surviving Riemann crew in a desperate attempt to prevent the weapon from firing. Picard finally met Shinzon, engaging in a fierce hand-to-hand battle with his younger and knife-wielding self. After a struggle, Shinzon resets and gathers another deadly-looking blade and charges Picard, but the captain is ready, pulling a sharp pipe from the wall and into his clone's chest. Shinzon's a hard bastard though, and in a final act of furious defiance, finished off the job, pulling himself through the pipe for one last twisted embrace. The sound of guts on metal haunt my dreams to this very day. Reed versus Hayes in Harbinger. Nerves were frayed and stress was high during the Enterprise NX year-long mission in the Delphic Expanse. Most of the crew dealt with it rather admirably, with the exception of T'Pol, who got high, and Malcolm Reed and Major Hayes, who took their simmering rivalry to the streets. Kind of. Insecure about the arrival of Hayes, Reed pushed back against the military at almost every turn, even when Hayes and his group of Makos proved themselves useful during critical engagements with the Xindi. The tension culminated when a sparring session between the two quickly escalated, spilling out into the Enterprise's corridors. Ironically, however, in the midst of the brutal back-and-forth battle, the two seemed to find some sort of newfound respect for one another, with Reed impressing Hayes with an unexpected Klingon throw to the floor. The conflict was soon broken up, however, by an alien intruder who the two teamed together and helped neutralize in engineering. The damage to both men, however, was pretty severe, with a far from impressed Captain Archer listing a bruised left kidney and a detached retina among the most serious injuries suffered during the fight. Battered and bruised, the two men were reprimanded, but appeared to have found common ground as a result of the bloody experience. So maybe violence is the answer? Nah, stick to diplomacy, lads. And there you have it, my picks for Star Trek's greatest ever fight scenes. Did I miss any? Let me know your favourites in the comment section, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more Star Trek reviews, analysis and theories. Until next time, I'm the Trek Lad. Live long and prosper.